If you like what I do, consider joining my channel or donating to my coffee. Links in the description. If you know me, you know I love barbarians. Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, has been one of my favorite movies for like 30 years. I had all the He-Man action figures growing up, thanks to my uncle. I even had Snake Mountain with the microphone and everything. There's just something about barbarians that's so pure. Maybe it's their simplistic approach to life. Might is right, and the guy with the bigger sword wins. Barbarians are peak masculinity. Testosterone-filled, no-nonsense, muscle-bound doofuses who get things done. Evil wizard moves in next door and starts summoning devils. Barbarians got a fix for that. Great sword to the dome. Dragon hoarding all your gold. Great sword to the dome. Succubus stealing all the virgins and... well, you get the idea. I find comfort in the single-mindedness of these fantasy heroes. So when I heard Beholgar was getting a sequel, I was all in. So, what's the game about? Deep beneath the earth, the mighty Jin King stirs. To prevent his rise and save the world from eternal darkness, Beholgar embarks on a quest for a legendary ancient sword. That's it. That's all I need. The moment you bring up a legendary ancient sword, I'm sold. But is this adventure a cut above the rest? Or is this legendary blade dull and brittle?
Combat.
Live by the sword, die by the sword, and axe, and spear, and throwing knives, and flaming throwing knives, and bombs. Beholgar does not like skeletons, and he will use a whole medieval flea market's worth of weaponry to wipe those bony bastards off the face of the earth. He starts with a basic sword and a few sub-weapons, but his arsenal grows as you explore and find new toys. Beholgar's general combat feels pretty good. Ground attacks have weight, each weapon has its own animation and strengths, and his defensive options are solid. A parry that stops attacks and deflects projectiles, plus a dodge roll with iframes. Aerial combat, though, doesn't feel so hot with certain weapons, especially the default sword. When you swing in the air, Beholgar loses all momentum and drops like a rock. It doesn't feel great, but other weapons perform much better. The spear in particular is the MVP. Great aerial attack, huge reach, dominates basically every fight. You can swap weapons on the fly, and each one has a special move, either a spell or a unique attack. You unlock these at the blacksmith, and once your blue rage meter is full, you hold the attack button and watch your weapon's true potential shred any jabroni dumb enough to get close. But if jabronis are smart enough to keep their distance, that's where sub-weapons come in handy. Beholgar has approximately a jillion different throwing weapons, and enemies drop them constantly. The problem is the transient nature of these things. I never knew what sub-weapon I had equipped because I kept swapping them unintentionally. In the heat of battle, I'd throw something and only then discover what it was. Don't get too attached. Your sub-weapons change more often than you change your loincloth. Now, let's talk bosses. Beholgar's bosses are spectacles. Sure, you've got your classic giants and dragons, but then you get more creative ones like a cursed concubine. Regardless of originality, they all look fantastic thanks to the game's Harryhausen-esque stop-motion animation look and feel. Bosses start on the easy side, but eventually evolve into fights where face tanking and hopping from side to side won't cut it. Overall, I really liked Beholgar's bosses, engaging without ever feeling overwhelming. That's it for combat. Beholgar's combat is a beefy, weapon-swapping brawl that shines on the ground, stumbles a bit in the air, and absolutely delivers when it comes to old-school 90s feel. The arsenal is fun to experiment with, the spear steals the show, sub-weapons are chaotic and plentiful, and the bosses bring enough style and challenge to keep every encounter memorable. It's messy, it's muscular, and it gets the job done, just like any good barbarian should.
Abilities. Platforming.
Beholgar's traversal upgrades are pretty scant and largely unoriginal, which is a bit of a letdown considering the first game had that really cool ice block ability I was hoping would return. Instead, you get a wall climb, an air dash, and a double jump. All genre staples, all implemented well, but nothing that's going to make you excited. Platforming wise, Beholgar's packed with insta-kill traps and pits, which I know is a big turnoff for a lot of MV fans. Thankfully, the game throws checkpoints at you like candy, so the punishment never feels too harsh. If you're down for a little NES-style stiffness, the platforming actually feels pretty good, and the level layouts fit right in with 90s action platformer design. Even though it's a Metroidvania, the structure is mostly a straight shot through levels, with shortcuts to unlock and plenty of locked doors requiring keys. Beholgar 2's map design isn't going to blow your mind, but as a retro callback, I appreciated what it was going for. And that's it for this section. Beholgar 2's movement and platforming get the job done. The abilities are familiar, the traps can be punishing, and the map design leans more linear than exploratory, but generous checkpoints and solid retro-style level layouts keep the experience enjoyable. It's not reinventing the Metroidvania wheel, but as a throwback to 90s action platformers, it delivers exactly what it sets out to do.
Progression.
Like a true barbarian, Beholgar keeps things simple when it comes to progression. It's very much a Metroid-like. Upgrades come from what you find while exploring or what you buy in shops. Gear technically exists, but it's all rings, and every ring auto-equips and stacks, so you never have to juggle loadouts or manage ring points or something like that. It's set it and forget it simplicity. Stat upgrades follow the same philosophy. There's no XP or leveling, but you can find items that permanently boost your HP or increase your max throwing item capacity. Weapons can be upgraded at save shrines and at the blacksmith. With the right materials and gold, shrines bump your weapon damage up a couple levels, and the blacksmith unlocks each weapon's special move. There's like one other shop that sells rings for what that's worth. I guess what I'm saying is progression is pretty anemic. I only found one side quest, and while there are plenty of optional pickups, Beholgar 2 is mostly about getting from point A to point B with minimal distractions so you can slay bosses. And honestly, for a 4-hour retro-leaning game, I kinda dig that focus. And that's gonna be it for progression. Beholgar 2 keeps progression as one-tracked as its barbarian hero. Simple rings, light stat boosts, modest weapon upgrades, and very little side content. It's undeniably anemic compared to modern Metroidvanias or even the original Beholgar, but that stripped down approach fits the game's retro point A to point B focus. For a short adventure built around momentum, bosses, and old school charm, the minimalism ends up feeling intentional rather than lacking.
Exploration.
Beholgar 2 is technically a Metroidvania with ability gates and upgrades, but in practice it plays like a mostly linear action platformer. There are optional sequences and hidden whoozits, sure, but the map has very little interconnectivity and feels closer to having a level-based structure. There's even an area you can only re-enter through fast travel. Backtracking is almost entirely for optional goodies. I can think of maybe 2 moments where it's required for progression. That's not bad design. It just means that if you're looking for an MV with intricate, looping exploration, Beholgar 2 won't scratch that itch. That said, poking around is still rewarding. There are false walls to break, rings and potions to find, materials to gather for upgrades, and even a hidden ability that makes Beholgar a little more dangerous. So, don't go in thinking exploration is pointless. The in-game map is fine. It shows room layouts and your position, but you can't mark it up or view other biomes unless you're physically in them. Fast travel, though, is slick. You warp between biomes via save shrines, and you can warp to save shrines right from the map screen. Simple, clean, effective. And that's it for exploration. Beholgar 2's exploration leans far more linear than Labyrinthine, but it still rewards curiosity with hidden items, breakable walls, and the occasional secret upgrade. It won't satisfy players craving dense interconnectivity, yet its straightforward structure, simple map, and slick fast travel keep the adventure moving at a brisk, retro-friendly pace. It's exploration with purpose, not complexity, and for this kind of throwback, that approach fits.
Atmosphere. Narrative.
One look, and it's obvious where Beholgar 2's upgrade focus went. The Ray Harryhausen-inspired art direction is impressive, even if the enemy roster leans hard into generic fantasy. Skeletons, giant rats, thieves. And the boss names? They can't get any more generic. But the designs are so appealing that it doesn't really matter. And truthfully, I like to imagine the boss names are so dumb because Beholgar named them on the fly, which is extremely barbarian core and only makes me love this game more. The environments aren't as striking as the character models, but they get the job done. Mostly static backgrounds, flickering torches, simple details, nothing flashy, but it all fits the tone of a gritty barbarian tale. The music is surprisingly great. I love Beholgar's title theme. It's in several of my playlists, and a lot of the soundtrack feels ripped straight out of an 80s or early 90s fantasy movie. There are tracks that are unnecessarily epic for what's happening on screen, which just adds to the game's charm. Narratively, you get a couple of cutscenes up front that set the stage. Beholgar needs to kill something evil. Along the way, a few NPCs and scrolls add some world building and direction, but really, all you need to know is this.
Yes! This game is the f***ing best!
Final thoughts and score.
Beholgar 2 is a lean, loud, retro-loving barbarian romp that knows exactly what it wants to be. On the performance front, there were a few bugs I had the pleasure of dealing with, mostly resulting in funny-looking animations rather than anything game-breaking. It's a short ride, clocking in at about 4 hours, but it was 4 hours well spent. I would have loved to have seen Beholgar have more platforming sections, more impactful backtracking, and bosses that weren't so derpy in the beginning, but I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't have a lot of fun with this game. I award Beholgar 2 a 7.5 out of 10. Beholgar 2 is available on PC. I played the game exclusively on the Steam Deck with 0 issues, and therefore give it a Steam Deck rating of verified.
Pair placement.
In Beholgar 2, combat is the star of the show. Weighty ground attacks, a fun arsenal, chaotic sub-weapons, and bosses that look like they crawled out of a Ray Harryhausen film. The platforming and abilities are familiar but functional, delivering that stiff 90s charm many of us older gamers love. Progression is bare bones to the point of being almost ascetic, yet its simplicity fits the game's straightforward point A to point B momentum. And while exploration is far more linear than Labyrinthine, there's still enough hidden items, breakable walls, and secret upgrades to make poking around worthwhile. All that said, Beholgar 2 is a fun game, but not a game that's going to scratch that MV itch. Beholgar 2 rages in the D tier. And I know this is unprecedented, but after a reevaluation, I'm moving the first Beholgar to the C tier. It's plain to see how much better of an MV the first Beholgar was when compared to its sequel. That said, Beholgar 2 isn't trying to compete with modern Metroidvanias. It's a 4-hour, sword-swinging throwback built for players who want a quick, punchy adventure with big monsters, big weapons, and even bigger barbarian energy. On that front, the game absolutely delivers. Beholgar 2 may be simple, but it still knows how to axe for your attention.